Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gradulting workshop series. Today's topic is personal finances. And needless to say, managing finances can be stressful, especially for graduate students. There's so many responsibilities and perhaps limited income. The cost of grad school, tuition, housing, books, transportation can be overwhelming. And it can affect your academic and your work duties. So we are offering this workshop today to help you improve your financial literacy and your money management skills. My name is Debbie McCutsky, and I'm the coordinator of services and programs for graduate student legal aid. I use she, her pronouns. And here are a few notes for the workshop today. Automatic closed captioning has been enabled. We welcome your questions and comments during the workshop, so post them in the chat and direct them to everyone. The speaker will take questions throughout the workshop as well as at the end. And near the end of the workshop, we will post a 6-second survey. And I know you have 6 seconds to respond. So please take the time to respond today. We want your feedback, and that helps us offer high quality workshops. So in addition to this, the Gradulting workshop series, Grad Legal Aid provides other important services. And I'm going to call on Zach Mundy, our director and attorney, to briefly tell you about our services.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending today. You're in store. We're going to have a nice workshop where you can learn a lot. And as Debbie said, my name is Zach Mundy. I'm the director of the Graduate Student Legal Aid Office. And just a quick overview of GLAO. We provide a number of different services for you, graduate students. We're here to help with whatever legal issues you may encounter. And so if you have legal questions, you can meet with me. I'm a licensed attorney in Maryland and DC. We can talk one-on-one about what your next step should be. If you are charged by the university with either cheating or plagiarism or violating the Code of Student Conduct, we have student advocates that can advise you and help you and even represent you through that process to make sure that whatever sanction you may be facing is reasonable, or if you didn't do anything wrong, then hopefully we can make sure that you don't get sanctioned at all. Debbie is also a notary, and so you can get free notary services from our office. Just schedule an appointment. And we also have a series of workshops called the Gradulting workshops there's 10 workshops each semester. They're all free. They're all sort of legal or legally tangential related, just life advice for people in your, people who are usually in their 20s, 30s, or any point in your life where you just want to learn more about how to be prepared and proactive for whatever comes next. We've certainly learned that recently, that we don't know what's around the corner, and so it's best to be prepared. And that's what our workshops are hoping to do, is to prepare you for your current life and the next step in your life. And finally, we do have monthly meetings with an immigration attorney specialist, because we know there are a lot of international students who need a little bit more than what I can provide, because immigration law is not my specialty. But we have an immigration specialist who comes in once a month, and she's a licensed attorney who has decades of experience working with the immigration system and students on visas and figuring out what the best option is when you graduate. And so you can meet with our attorney, our immigration attorney, for any specialty questions that you may have. And that's sort of the quick overview of GLAO, but the easy thing to remember is we're here to help whatever your issue may be. Just reach out to us. I know that Cody put the website in the chat. And if you're here, you're probably already on our listserv, or you know about us a little bit, so you can find out more information on our website. Now, today we have a great workshop about financial planning and sort of personal finances and what you can do now to be proactive for the long term, and also some sort of tips for short-term planning. And we have with us today Dorothy Knuckles, who you can see on the screen, and she works for the University of Maryland Extension Program, and she is a financial wellness educator. She has lots of qualifications and certifications that help support that. And she works in sort of family and consumer sciences as well. And we're lucky to have Dorothy here to teach us what we should be doing. I'm certainly going to be listening and hopefully picking up a few tips on what I'm doing wrong with my finances. But thank you, Dorothy, and take it away.
Thank you all. I'm really excited to be here with you. Thanks for joining. I have to say, a little bummed that we couldn't be in person, but I totally understand it needs to be safe. So just a little bit of background. As mentioned, I do teach personal finance. I have 3 kids who are all young adults. One is in graduate school now. She actually graduated from College Park, but decided to do graduate school someplace else. What I would love to hear from you, for those who don't mind sharing, is just the department that you're in. So either what you're studying, the department that you're in. Just kind of love to know who's out there in the little boxes. But nothing has to be shared. There'll be some times where I'll be asking for some feedback during this program. It is going to move pretty quickly, but you certainly don't have to respond. A couple of the areas that responses are through an anonymous poll. So let's get started and dive in. So let me share my screen with you real quick. I'm seeing a bunch pop up. Thanks for sharing. So library, information, psychology, cybersecurity, a couple engineering. Really lots of different representation out there. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so you move a couple of the Zoom things around. This is quite literally a crash course in some personal finance. So I called it Stash Your Cash and Control Your Dough, because to be able to feel empowered about the way that you're using your money at different stages in your life, it really comes down to being able to set enough aside to pay for the things that you want and need, and to be able to maintain as much control over what's coming in and what's going out as possible. There are textbooks on this. We're going to cover as much as we can in about the next, let's see, about 45 minutes. So like I said, this is going to go pretty fast. First of all, it sounds like you're going to be doing a 6-second survey at the end. This might add another 10 seconds or so to the survey, but it would really help me out tremendously. If you're part of a university, we usually ask for some feedback. If you could do this very, very short evaluation, there's a few questions and then a stop sign. So if you could open this up, you can either do it through a link I'm about to put in the chat box. That is the link. Or if you have your phone as a separate device with you and you open your camera app, you can hold it up to the QR code that's on your screen right there, and you can do it that way. This helps us to know whether this was informative for you or not, and also gives you a chance at the end for a little bit of feedback if you so choose. But as I mentioned, this goes directly to me. It's anonymous, so we do use the feedback. It doesn't go into some bucket somewhere and never hear from it again. So I do use this information. So it would help me if you don't mind completing that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to get one more link as we move forward. I understand some of you may be watching this as a recording later, and if you're watching the recording, you can do this too. This would help me also if you are watching the recording after the live program. I'll pause to get the next link here. There we go. All right, so let's talk about money. That's what this is all about, right? First thing, if you have experience using Poll Everywhere, that's what this is. This is a way to anonymously provide some feedback. And I am curious, when you hear the word money, what do you think? What's a word or two words, couple words that you think about when you hear the word money? Because how you think about it really affects how you use it, your attitudes toward it, whether you tend to be a spender, a saver, how you spend, how you save. So this gives just a moment to think about that for yourself and to provide some response. And I'm going to put the link in the chat box. For me, the actual link didn't work, but when I typed this and put it into the taskbar, it worked just fine. Or you can access this survey using your phone by texting. If you text the number, use the number 37607 on the top of the screen, and then respond DNUCL 645, that will bring you to the survey itself. Just going to give you a moment or two to respond. And if you can't access it, you can put the response in the chat box as well. So I'll give you all a moment to think about what word or words come to mind when you think about the word money. And they're starting to come in. Great, you can see them on the screen there in front of you. And you can answer more than once. I'll give you another maybe 10, 15 seconds to respond. I'm chuckling at Cabaret. That's one of my favorite musicals. Money makes the world go around. I think this is the first group that popped up. I do use this occasionally. So as they're continuing to come in, I am noticing, and I'm sure you have noticed as well, that there's some words on the screen that have kind of a positive connotation and some words that have maybe a more limiting or negative connotation. I see stress, freedom, food, gotta love that. Yeah, money buys you food. Overwhelming, bank. So lots of different types of terms that really evoke different types of feelings. And that's important to know. There are, we don't have time to cover this today, but there are some surveys that you can take that helps you to evaluate your own money personality. So thank you for responding to that. I'm going to move on and let's talk about what we'll talk about in the next 40 minutes or so. We're going to talk about some budgeting strategies. We'll talk about some skills related to budgeting and how to set up a budget, but let me move past that. What's most important are these topics that you see on the screen, and you'll be getting a copy of this. So even though I'm going pretty fast, you can go back to this later because we're going to cover not everything that's on the screen, but most of it. We'll actually talk about money topics that you should know as you're kind of advancing beyond school and into life to get you to where you want to be, to help you secure the place that you want to have, to help you reach the goals that you would like to have for yourself in a realistic way. So, money, personality, and values. We're not going to have a further discussion on that, but some of the terms that came up can be a reflection of your own money personality, the fears and the goals and the hopes that you have. We'll talk about setting financial goals, assets versus liabilities, what that means and how you can calculate it. We're not going to talk much about income and careers because that's something that you do on campus. We'll talk about creating a spending plan, which is kind of the kinder, gentler version of the word budgeting. We'll talk about borrowing and debt, and we'll talk about saving and investing. And obviously, since we don't have a lot of time, we're going to talk about all of them just a little bit. Some things that we are not really going to talk about today, but that are important for you to know are the three things that are on the right side of the screen. So managing your bills and paying them on time, being timely with bill paying is very important as you develop the next bullet point, which is your credit and credit reports. We have a whole separate program on understanding credit and credit reports. which if you all wanted me to do at any particular time, I'm happy to do. And then identity theft, protecting your own identity. So money skill number one, measuring goals. It is so important as you are working with your money to write things down, regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's budgeting, whether it's goal setting. And by write, it can be on an app, it can be a spreadsheet. So it doesn't necessarily have to be pen and paper write. It doesn't have to be the old fashioned kind of write, but tracking and writing things down, documenting what you want, makes it so much more likely that you will meet your goals and get where you want. And I'm going to switch screens for just a moment here. And I will share all these documents with you when this program is over, but I'm going to show you the document that's on the screen. Take me just a moment to get there. There we go. So this is a tool that you can use the actual tool, or you can use this in another form that you'd like. But this particular one is a form that helps you, tool that helps you plan for large purchases, life events. And when you plan with your money, you don't have to necessarily plan just for large things. You can plan for smaller purchases. It can be a clothing purchase. It can be a new laptop. It can be just making your income last throughout the month. These are all types of planning, ways that you can plan and set goals for yourself, but we're just going to address larger goals at the moment. And we'll circle back to this in a little bit to show how this fits in with a whole financial planning strategy. But using this tool, let's just show how that works into a financial plan. So I'm going to fill in the blocks in this top row right here on this tool. This is a refillable PDF, but suppose I wanted to purchase a house. My own home, condo, house, whatever form that is appealing to you. So I'm going to write that down. Again, whether it's on a spreadsheet or on a tool like this or in a notebook that you keep, it really doesn't matter how you write it down. I'm going to write it down. And then going by my finances and thinking about where I'm going to be when I'm going to graduate, what I want my life to be in a certain amount of time, I'll think about, well, when do I want to reach that goal? So let's just say I want to reach that goal in 5 years. I want to buy my house in 5 years. So that we're going to make it easier, I'm going to do this by 60 months. And the house might cost a certain amount of money, but I want a down payment. Now, houses are expensive. I'm going to use round numbers, but say I want to save $12,000 for the purchase of that home. So I put that in the wrong block. So let's just say the house is $200,000. I'm doing this all on the screen and I want to save $12,000. Now that's a lot of money, but in 60 months, that means $200 every month to save toward that goal of purchasing a house. Now, while you're in school, that very well might not be realistic at all. In fact, that might not be realistic for a while after school. It really depends on so much that's going on and what your goals are. That might not be a goal at all. But by writing it down and tracking it, let me go to the next screen here. Your goals go from something that you wish that you could have to something that you can actually do. So by tracking and being careful about reaching your goals, by being proactive about it and setting the parameters by which you want to reach them, you are more likely to do what you see on the screen. You're more likely to actually track your spending, which has many benefits, to live within the income that you have rather than go into debt, to stick with your budget, stick with the plans that you have for yourself, and basically be more financially successful, whichever way that looks like for you, because financial success looks different for us all, depending on our goals, our culture, our values. It just looks different for each person. So that was a bit of about goal setting and the importance of setting goals and being proactive about setting goals and tracking them. Let's talk a little bit about next money skill, which is calculating financial net worth. So when I asked you to share your what department you're in, I didn't see, I may have missed it, but I did not see anyone in finance. So this may not be a term that comes up frequently, but your financial net worth helps you to know where you are as far as what you own, the things that you own and their value, versus the things that you owe, your liability, your debts. And that helps you create a financial picture for yourself. And here's a bit of an example. So there are two individuals on the screen. You can see them on the left, Jose and Maria. And the list of some of the things that they own and that they owe. So the way to determine your financial net worth, let me go back to that last screen here, is to figure out the value of your assets, the things that you own, and then subtract out your liabilities, which are the things that you owe, and that becomes your financial net worth. Now, as a bit of a caveat, a bit of a warning, it is not at all unusual for someone just coming out of school to have a negative, in fact, sometimes a significantly negative financial net worth. So don't let that get you down. Your degree, your opportunity is worth it. But let's figure out how this is calculated. So what we want to do is to determine which of these things here are assets and which of these things are liabilities. So let's look at Jose first. I'll get some feedback from you. There's a list of items under Jose. Which of those do you think are assets? You can either just unmute yourself and call it out, or put it in the chat box. What does Jose have that are assets? The things that he owns that are of value. All right, I see condo. Oh, yeah, so condo. There we go, got my annotate to work. Condo's an asset, the car, the copyrighted mobile app. I may have missed something that went in there, but the home theater, the third one down, is actually an asset. It is something that he owns. You'll also notice that he has different types of assets. So he has the condo, which is a type of real estate. The car, which is a use asset or a depreciating asset. He owns the copyright to a mobile app, which is intellectual property. It's not something you can see or hold, but it's definitely something of value. So you're right there. Now, Jose also has some liabilities, some things that he owes. So what are some of the things that he owes? What are his liabilities? I see credit card debt. Yep. Put that with a liability. And since he has financed the theater, that will also be a liability. So the theater is most likely both an asset and a liability there. We don't know just by that list if he has a loan on the car Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Since we don't know, we won't include that in the liability column. Let's move down to Maria now. And since I already have the red up, what are some of the liabilities that Maria has? What are some of the things that are debts or loans? I see car loan, that is a liability. Mortgage, yes. And someone mentioned loans, so we'll include the student loan. So we have all of her liabilities. So now this is more of a free response question for you, just for the chat. Maria has a home mortgage and she has a car loan. Now this isn't in the column, but if she has a home mortgage and a car loan, what are some of the assets that she probably has that aren't listed in her asset column? I see home and car, yes. So the home and debt, depending on what it means to you, debt can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. It can be a bad thing if it's stressful. It can be a bad thing if it's used in a way that doesn't help you financially, that could hurt you financially. It could be a good thing if it helps you get some of the things that you need or that you want without having to save the full amount of the money to get there. Very few people can take cash out of their pocket and purchase a home. But by getting a loan on a home, getting a mortgage, it allows you to, it's called leverage. So for a small amount of money, relatively small amount of money, you could purchase a home and then borrow the rest. So we'll just assume that Maria also has a home and a car. And then for her assets, I'm not going to draw the lines right now, she has her retirement account. And then of course, the home and the car. So let me clear all that. Clear the drawings, turn off annotate. And this next screen gives you a little bit of a glimpse as to what a financial net worth statement could look like. There are on the top a listing of someone's, in this case, Anthony, so someone else, wealth building assets. So cash, things that might grow in value, stocks and bonds, various investments. And we'll talk about savings and investments in a little bit. Then you see some other assets such as a car. A car is going to go down in value, not up, most likely, unless you have a certain classic car or something like that. And then liabilities, the debts, the things where money is owed. You'll see in this case, in the colored boxes in the right-hand column, that Anthony has about $46,500 in total value of assets, $22,000 in liability or debt. So his financial net worth, once you subtract the liabilities from the assets, is $24,000. So a financial net worth is a snapshot in time. It can change regularly. It's not something that I would advise people doing on a regular basis. If you go to make a major purchase, such as a home, you might have to provide this type of information for a financial institution. So it's good to know what it means and how to do it. Okay, moving forward. This is often what people think about when they think about managing their finances or going to a personal finance workshop is, how do I make a budget? Well, the way we like to think about it is making a spending plan. Many of us think of budgeting as kind of limiting. Budget is how you tell yourself no for things, or a spending plan is really how you allow yourself to say yes to things that help you to reach your goals. Same thing, just different terminology, different mindset for the two. It is really a centerpiece of planning your personal finances is making a spending plan, because having a spending plan kind of answers this question of whether you control your cash flow or whether it controls you. Think about money like thinking about time. You all are grad students, so you probably have had some experience with having to plan your time really carefully around exams or papers or going to class. When that's not planned, it's easy to let time get away. You realize you spend, the last 3 hours on the web, and then, oops, it got away from you. Whereas if you control your time, you're able to get more accomplished. Really, money is very similar. When you plan purposefully, you're usually able to do more with it. So budget or a spending plan. Let's talk about the various steps. If you think of it in terms of spending plan and trying to determine what you have to spend, the first thing you need to figure out is what is available to spend. So what do you have? So we're going to kind of go through some of these blanks right here. So before knowing what to spend, you need to know what is coming in. And another word for that starts with a letter I. Any guesses on that? Determine what your, open the text box and write it on here. Income, I see, yeah. So income is the top line. I didn't get that centered particularly well. There we go. Step one is to figure out what your income is. And income can be in many different forms. It can be through types of assistance. It can be through a job. It can be through a grant. It can be through lots of different things. So step one is to figure out what your income is. And the next one is to figure out, I'm just going to write this in here, is to figure out what your obligations are. Obligations are things that you have to spend your money on, things that you've maybe made a contract to, such as loans. And your loans, some of these I'm going to give you, and then some of these we'll go through the guessing process again. I do see a question. Let me get to that in just a moment. So there are two major categories of loans. I actually didn't make these two. I need to change it because I don't like the way it is. So there are installment type loans. See how bad my typing is. Installment loans are things like student loans, car loans, where you make a fixed monthly payment every month. And then there are some unsecured loans, such as credit card debt. But these are both things that you have an obligation for. If you have an obligation for court costs, child support, alimony, anything like that, those are obligations, loans, things that you are contractually obligated to pay. Then are the things that you pay for because you need to have them, such as food, clothing, your utility bills, your phone bill, and that category has a name that starts with an E. And so you need to pay for these. Any guesses as to what that is, to figure out what you need to pay out for your daily living expenses? Yeah. So then you need to determine what your expenses are. And the best way to do that is to start tracking them. So it's hard to know how to set up a spending plan if you're not really sure what you're spending. So, and a good way to start, if tracking everything is overwhelming, is to start with the things that fluctuate more. Maybe track your food spending, your entertainment expenses, going out to eat, that type of thing. So even if you just track one category that you're not sure how you're making your spending, go ahead and do that. So track your expenses. Step 4 is really determining what your discretionary spending is, the spending you have more of a choice on. Determining step 5, whether there's other things that have been left out. And step 6 is subtracting your income minus your obligations, expenses. Now, remember earlier when we talked about goals. goal setting. And we talked about, an example of a goal is to be able to purchase a house. And to do that, you would need to be able to save $200 a month. That is where your goals need to fit into your spending plan, or it would be really hard to reach them. And the three terms that are in the goal category are short-term goals, goals that you might want to reach in the next 6 months to a year, for example. Your intermediate term goals that you might want to reach in the next maybe year to 2 years, and then your long-term goals that you might have in the next 3, 5, 10, maybe even 30, 40 years. You're never too young to start planning, to start setting money aside for retirement. One of the last slides we'll get to is it demonstrates the value of starting young to save for retirement. So I do see a question, a couple questions in the chat box. So let me address those before I move on. And I'm going to go backwards here. One is, where is rent? Rent would typically be, it could be either an obligation or an expense. There's not necessarily a rule as to where something goes in your spending plan, but if it is something that you are contractually obligated to spend, you have a rent contract, then it would probably be somewhere under obligations. Or housing expense, but it's really kind of up to you on where you put something in your spending plan. And when we get to the actual budget sheet, there's a category for housing. And then someone asked, do we look at our monthly or annual income? That is a really great question, because how you create your spending plan is really up to you for what works better. Kind of the traditional way and the most common way of creating a spending plan is monthly income, but maybe you get a big income chunk once or twice a year. So if you are getting student loan funds to pay for your living expenses, then you would take that and maybe divide it and get a figure out, a monthly figure. I would say it can be more challenging to do a spending plan on an annual basis, just because often your expenses fluctuate so much, and it's easier to track things in a shorter amount of time than a longer period of time. But it's not uncommon at all to have income that changes a lot, especially when you're a student. Maybe you earn all of your income in the summer when you have a summer job, and then you'll just have to annualize it. You have to think about how you want to spend it, how you need to spend it. Do you need to take that summer income and make it pay for your monthly rent payments throughout the year? Then you probably want to take that income and divide it. And then when we get to the budget worksheet that I sent around, and if you don't have it in front of you, that's fine. I have got it on the screen. I'll show you a demonstration of that. So just a quick thing, I wouldn't necessarily call this a guideline, kind of a suggestion that financial planners will give is kind of the 50, 30, 20 rule. And that is that if you can plan it this way, and it probably will take several years to actually get there, a guideline is to have 50% or half of your income go towards your needs and expenses, your obligations. 30% toward the things that you want, things that you don't necessarily need to have, but make life look more enjoyable. And then 20% into savings. That could very well be a huge stretch for a lot of people, but since this exists, I just threw it out there. A little very short conversation on needs versus wants. Our needs are the basic things that we have to survive. We think of, food, clothing, shelter, things like that. And then our wants being the things that make life more interesting or fun. And whether something is a need or a want really can depend. So a laptop, is that a need or a want? And you can put your opinion in the chat box if you want. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Without a computer, a laptop, you can function as a student. I can function in my job. but I don't need it to survive. And what we tend to find is that as our very basic needs become met, if I no longer need to worry about, do I have a place to live? Do I have food to eat? Then our needs start to expand a little bit. And this is just something to keep in mind as you are constructing your spending plan, is to really think through, is something that you want to spend money on, is that a need or a want? That's not to say you shouldn't spend money on wants at all, but it's an important consideration to figure out where things fit into your spending plan. And I do see the question, in which cases do we really need to make a plan? I would say in any case, really, having a plan helps you to get where you want to go financially. It helps you to meet your obligations. So I am going to skip this next screen in the interest of time. It was a time to share what goals people tend to have, you or someone else, for after now or after you finish school, but it is definitely something to keep in mind. So this is the budget tool that I sent to you, and I will send another one that's actually refillable when this program is over. I wanted you to have it though, so you can see some of the categories. Oh, it looks like I need to clear the, sorry, I need to clear the annotations off the screen. Give me a second here. There we go. My apologies. So if you, this is the first page. This is the first page. This is the two-sided document that I sent. And you can see there are many different categories. Not everyone is going to be applicable. And you might decide that you don't really want or need to record taxes, because maybe you just want to record your wages after taxes are taken out, just to make life a little bit easier for you. And that's fine too. So just because there are a lot of categories on a tool that you decide to use doesn't necessarily mean you need to use all of them, or even, a lot of them. There are categories for utilities, so that they don't get left out. Some people tend to just group them into one category for utilities. That's fine too. The most important thing about tracking your expenses and your income is to do it in a way that works for you. And if you love to track 50 different categories, because that's who you are, then do that. If you're the type of person that's just not going to do it, if you have to track that much, then don't. Pick one or two categories that work for you and let the other ones slide. The most important thing is to do what works for you. I'm going to go to the second page, the back side of this, because this is really what I want to draw your attention to, and what can be a big budget buster for people. On the left column are spaces for health and medical costs that we can sometimes forget about, and pet care, which if you have a pet, it's important to budget for them because they do cost money. And on the right side, there's a column for periodic expenses. Many of us have expenses that we may only be billed for a couple times a year. For you all, maybe that's tuition. It could be your car insurance. It can be renter's insurance if you pay that. Maybe it's a clothing budget, especially if you have kids, where you have to buy lots of clothes in August when they're about to go back to school, or when they're growing rapidly. This is a way to track those periodic expenses so they don't become a surprise and a burden in the month they become due. So if you follow the budget tool, once you add all those up, you can divide the total by 12 and budget for yourself, set aside for yourself a monthly amount so that you're ready. You have that amount in savings, you're ready when the amount becomes due. All right, we are already running out of time, so let me go through some of these. So tips for managing money after you graduate. Repaying student loans. There are many different student loan payment options. That's a topic for another workshop, but do make sure that you stay on top of your student loans, pay them on time. That opens up your options for you. There are income-driven repayment plans so that you can pay back based on your income, not based on a fixed amount. Plug spending leaks. Those are the things you kind of forget that you're paying for. If there's a gym membership you're not using, if they're bank fees that you're paying, there are probably ways to avoid paying those. Late fees that you might have to pay if you're not paying things on time, so be careful of those. Manage your debt, make sure things are paid on time, not just your student loans, but everything else. And be creative. Think of ways that you can really stretch your money at entertainment, things that are fun that don't cost a lot of money, for example. Some ways to track money. There's the envelope system. I'm going to send you a link to like a really short 2 to 3 minute read of a little post that I wrote. I was going to share it with you now, but really don't have time to read it. That's my favorite. It's where you literally take cash, put it in an envelope for expenses that are periodic or that go up and down a lot, like food, so that you have the money set aside and you're able to see what you're spending a little bit easier than if it's on a credit card. Another way of tracking your money is by keeping receipts, making sure you write everything down in a spreadsheet or an app. There are a lot of really good budgeting apps out there. I have them on another slide, so I'll get to that. A little explanation of the envelope method, but I will send that to you. This screen has some apps for you. There's some really popular spending plan tools. Some are linked to bank accounts. You don't have to link them to your bank account if that makes you uncomfortable. I'm going to go through a couple of these quickly because you'll be getting the slides. Ways to get free checking. Let's move on to borrowing and credit. So real quick, in the chat box, credit cards. Let's go to the bottom left question. What are some disadvantages, some downsides of using a credit card? Any thoughts on that? Do a speed round in the chat. Disadvantages of using a credit card. So you forget to pay, yeah. Impulsive spending, agreed. Yeah, I agree to all of them. Easy to get a lot of interest piled on, yeah. All right, let's switch gears. What about advantages? What are some advantages of using a credit card? And cash back, yeah. Get that 1 or 2 or 3%. What else? Limit on it. Building credit. I'm glad that you said that. Yes. So here's a list that I compiled. It's certainly not an exclusive list by any stretch, but some advantages to the left. So useful in case of an emergency. I got my first credit card after I was in college. Still have that credit card, same one. I blew a tire on the highway on my way home and was looking under the car cushions and all over for cash because I didn't carry a whole lot of cash. I barely had enough money to change my tire. So I got a credit card after that for emergency use. Convenience. The third one down, someone mentioned, allows you to make large purchases that you might not be able to make otherwise without resorting to some credit, even if it means that you pay that back later, or obviously have to pay it back, but if you pay it back the next month, you just don't have to carry the cash with you. And the incentives. So some of the disadvantages that we know about is people have less tendency to shop around for deals, for good deal when they're using a credit card. I think internet shopping has addressed that to a large degree. It's much easier to shop around when you're shopping online. You'd have to be careful of the Amazon making suggestions for other things for you to buy, which is the next bullet. You might buy more than you should. It's easy, it's there. It's easy to lose track of how much you spent, and it can become a costly habit. And of course, the interest. So question is interest on a credit card. It really depends on the card. When you get a credit card, they will disclose that to you. You can shop around before you actually get it, but they tend to be in the ballpark of about 18%, so not cheap. But it really varies by card. Some are more, some are less. 3 C's of credit in general is character. That is your that's how you show that you're good for your word, that you repay. Your capacity, which is your ability to repay based on your income, and collateral, which is an asset that you pledge for a loan. So if you show good character throughout your borrowing history of paying things back, if you show that you are able to pay a loan, and if you have a secured loan, you tend to get a lower interest rate. So that is why house loans are at a much lower interest than a credit card, because a loan is typically secured by the house that you're buying. A couple quick things about loans. For this illustration that you see on the screen, the biggest takeaway I want you to get from this is the lower part of the screen, under where it says $15,000 car loan at 6.5%, and it gives you different terms: 3-year, 4-year, 5-year. What's important to know is that if the interest rate is consistent for the length of time, the faster you pay a loan off, the less you'll pay overall. Because interest on loans accumulates based on the balance that you have on your loan. So the faster you're paying down your balance, the less you're going to pay in interest. So you'll notice at the very bottom line here, a 3-year car loan with interest, you'll pay $16,500. For a same loan for 5 years, you're paying about $1,000 more, because you're stretching out that loan for a longer period of time, which means interest accumulates for a longer period of time. Couple quick things. I'm going to skip through some of this because we don't really have time. $500 credit card at 18%. If you make just the minimum payment until it's paid off, it will take you 7 years, 9 months, almost 8 years to pay off that credit card. Most of the stuff we buy with our credit cards, they're not going to last that long. So just something to keep in mind. You want your payments on debt to kind of match the value of what you're using them to buy. This is a similar illustration, but different balance. Something else to keep in mind with debt and credit. With student loans, or any type of installment loan for that matter, whether it's a mortgage, a car loan, anything like that, as I mentioned, your interest is charged on the outstanding balance. So as part of your financial plan for later in life, if you make larger payments than you have to, you will pay your loan off faster and you will save yourself interest, because those extra payments will go to paying down the balance. And interest is charged on the outstanding balance. The faster your balance goes down, the less interest you will owe over time. So even if your original loan documents say that you owe, your total loan interest over time will be, just say $1,000. If you pay your loan off faster, you will pay less than that $1,000. We have 5 minutes left. So let's see, I'm going to run through this very quickly. Saving and investing, because they tend to be really 2 different concepts. Saving tends to be more for what you plan to buy in the near future. You put money aside so that you have it to buy something that you want in a particular period of time. Investing tends to be more about, let me go to the next screen here. putting money into something that's going to grow in value over time. Those can be stocks and bonds, if you're familiar with those. That also can be a course in and of itself. It can be in real estate, like buying a home. That's a form of investing. Cryptocurrency, which is well beyond the scope of this. So investing really is putting money aside into something that's going to grow in value so that you're building your financial net worth, which is what we talked about at the beginning. The advantage of that is to make what you have, to make the income that you have really work for you. It opens up possibilities for you if you later wanted to, say, invest in your own business, if you wanted to pass something along to your own children or help fund their education. Investing, having a plan to have your money grow and work for you helps you to reach those goals. That's a way of building your wealth, growing your dough. Some quick tips for paying yourself first. So when you have your spending plan, you want to make yourself one of your expenses. So your savings is a category for yourself. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, but pay yourself as part of your expense categories when you set your budgeting. We are about out of time, and we really covered most of the important parts, most of the important things I was going to talk about today. I'm going to, so I can see you better, I am going to stop sharing. And I do see a question in the chat box. I can also stay a little bit longer. So if there are additional questions that we don't get to, I'm happy to stay for another 15 minutes or so to answer them, or as long as you have them up to that point. So I'm going to get to what I see in the chat box. And that is, so Tira, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, said that when I paid off a loan for undergrad, credit score went down. Is there a reason why? There could be a couple of reasons, and most likely it's very temporary. So a credit score is, there are a lot of elements that go into a credit score. We do a program on this, but one of them is your mix of loans that you have. So if you have just a student loan and a credit card and you pay off your student loan, and so that you only have a credit card, that's not a mix of credit. So that might temporarily reduce your score, but it should go up pretty quickly after that. And another thing to be careful of with credit scores is your credit score might go down, but it could still be very good. So the most important element of the things that go into calculating a credit score is, are you making your payments on time? And do you have too many payments? If you keep those two under control, that's the largest portion of your credit score. So that is all I had for you all, but I am open to more questions. So let me know if you have any. Oh, wait, you know what I forgot? I forgot the end part of our evaluation, of my evaluation. So let me quickly get to that. There we go. Two things. Let me share this back. Hopefully you still have this open on your computer or your phone. If you don't, you can get to it using the QR code that's on the screen. This is the end part of the evaluation. And I'm going to go to the next screen quickly. On the next one, this is, these are links to go to relatively new Instagram account where I will be posting taking questions and answers, but also posting tips, especially on student loans coming up and some kind of college related financial planning. Haven't done a whole lot on it yet, but I'm trying to get that up and going. So if you're familiar, if you have Instagram, you open it up to your own account page, go to your settings, there's a QR code spot, or you can just do search for UMD_extension_money, and that's how you get there. Or the Facebook page, post the same information to both. you can scan those and get there. And that's it. So.
All right. Well, I don't see any more questions, but I appreciate you sharing your contact information, Dorothy, and so students can contact you directly.
Let me do that again, because I think that was on the first. Oh, it's also on the next one.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank
So
you
that's
for the guidance and all the ideas and the tips and the tricks. You know, there's just not one way to save money and to manage money. You kind of have to experiment and figure out what works for you. And clearly you gave us a lot of different options. So thank you so much for sharing your ideas on money management. And thank you to all the students that joined us on Zoom, as well as those who will watch this on YouTube. We hope you'll take that 6 seconds to give us some feedback and do the surveys that Dorothy requested as well. And finally, hopefully we'll see you at next week's workshop, where the topic is help me get a Maryland driver's license. So for now, everyone, have a good week, and let us know how we can help you. Take care.
Thanks so much.